Live from KSAT 12, the Nightbeat starts right now.
The guidelines were given. Now it's up to the city and county to tailor the next order for San Antonio. The COVID-19 health transition team hoping to open the economy in phases, along with an increase in testing and tracing.
Tonight, the mayor warning our relatively low case count now is a product of the social distancing measures in place early on. So a spike in cases could mean stricter measures. Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest numbers tonight. Bexar County has 1,307 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 56 people are in the hospital, with 574 who have recovered from the illness. But there are still hundreds of active cases. The death toll remains at 44 tonight. 2 zip codes are now leading with the highest number of cases tonight. 78222, where the Southeast Side Nursing Home is located, and 78207, where the Bexar County Jail is located. Tonight, 2 additional inmates have tested positive for a total of 64 there. 5 inmates are in the hospital. Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolf says there is a jail population of about 3,000, with more than 1,000 inmates in isolation units tonight. 2 more deputies have also tested positive for COVID-19 for a total of 36 deputies. And as Friday draws near, malls, movie theaters, stores, and restaurants are hoping customers will venture out to their locations. Many now faced with changing operations, like having someone ready to open the door so you don't have to. It's one of several changes the Rustic is making. Along with limiting capacity, all staff members are being required to wear gloves and a mask. And instead of holding a menu, you'll have to use your phone to activate a code, which will take you to a virtual menu.
We have a large outdoor space. So because of our giant patio, we can practice safe social distancing measures, spread tables apart, get everybody 6 feet from each other, and make sure that we're operating within the guidelines, but also have enough people in there to where it is fun and it is festive. Not all businesses are looking to reopen their doors so quickly, though.
Our Tiffany Huertas met with some local business owners, one even saying she's concerned that opening up could make her lose even more money.
The 25% is just not worth that risk.
The owner of Caparelli's on Main says they will not be opening the dining area on Friday.
We would not be able to keep up with the takeout and the dine-in with a full menu. It's impossible.
Governor Greg Abbott says businesses can reopen at 25% capacity occupancy on Friday. But Gay Caparelli says financially it doesn't make sense to open the restaurant.
I could lose money, absolutely, because I'd have to bring more staff back in here. And right now, I have not been funded by the PPP, which I applied for.
Caparelli is not alone.
No, we will not be opening on Friday.
The restaurant owner of Aldacos in Stone Oak says they used to have 62 employees and the pandemic forced them to cut down to 25 people.
There's going to be some training that we need to put in place and that we can be ready so that we can efficiently protect ourselves and our clients as well.
These restaurants are not the only ones not opening up on Friday. Alamo Draft House will not be opening up this weekend. A spokesperson released this statement in part, quote, "Opening safely is a very complex project that involves countless new procedures and equipment, all of which require extensive training. This is something we cannot and will not do casually or quickly," end quote. In the meantime, business owners continue to adjust the best way they can during the pandemic.
I would just like to see everybody stay safe and healthy, and hopefully this will all come to an end real soon.
Tiffany Huertas, KSAT 12 News.
The coronavirus tearing a couple apart. 84-year-old Leola Doris Wallace would lose her fight against the disease on March 21st. Her husband, 85-year-old Ailey Wallace, also contracted the virus, but was able to make a full recovery after spending more than a month in the hospital. The Night Team's Japhanie Gray spoke with him tonight.
How has it felt being home and getting back to a normal life?
It's great. The only thing is that my daughter's had a handful of bills.
85-year-old Allie Wallace knows how to put a smile on people's faces. That, along with his faith, are what's keeping him positive despite contracting COVID-19 and losing his wife of 64 years to the virus over a month ago.
He just said that they weren't feeling well, and that he was going to take my mom. that she'd had fever.
Initially, doctors thought his wife had pneumonia caused by her dementia. Soon after, Wallace's daughter, Zinzi Lewis, realized something was wrong with her dad as well.
His breathing was labored. He was coughing.
Wallace was admitted into the hospital March 18th when he tested positive for COVID-19.
She said they were struggling to keep me alive and keep that air coming.
He says he doesn't remember feeling any pain during the critical days.
I was resting in the palm of God's hand.
But the thing he remembers the most, saying goodbye to his wife before she died days after he tested positive.
I got a chance to see her in like a dome situation. And I called her name, and she opened her eyes and smiled, and then she closed her eyes. And that was the last time I saw her.
Wallace says he was at peace knowing he took good care of his wife.
I would always tell her, I said, "Now don't stop me, baby. Don't stop me. I just want to change it. I don't want to clean you up. I just want to get you bad."
This past Friday, he was released from the hospital, and while at home, the Fiesta Flambeau Association threw him his own social distancing parade.
Mr. Wallace, what do you want? I told him, I said, some sweet potato pie and some collard greens.
Now, knowing that he will one day be with his wife, he has this message for others.
God got his angels watching over us.
Japhanie Gray, KSAT 12 News.
We wish him well. A Nightbeat update on the lockout at an apartment complex. Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolf saying the Almost Club apartment complex may have sidestepped the issue of evictions amid this pandemic.
From what I've gathered from the staff is that they didn't evict anybody. They put a lock on their door and said if they want in, they have to come to the office. And it may technically not be an eviction, but it certainly was an intimidation. And I don't know that we're looking to see if there's any legal rights we have, because it seemed like they sort of sidestepped the eviction issue.
Sure does. As many as 50 residents found their doors locked yesterday and were let back into their homes just this morning. The county's moratorium on evictions is supposed to prevent apartment managers from evicting residents during the coronavirus crisis. County Commissioner Justin Rodriguez said that while the county's ban on evictions is set to expire on Thursday, it will likely be extended through the month of May.
Let's take a look at the cases of COVID-19 in our surrounding counties. Hays County jumping up to 160 cases tonight. Guadalupe County had an increase of 7 cases for a total of 80 cases. Comal County is at 52 cases, while Wilson County has 31 cases. You can also follow the number of cases by county on KSAT.com.
The issue of crime taking a different spot in the latest Fairfax KSAT Rivard Report poll. Back in February, the majority of those polled listed it as their main concern. The new poll released this month now shows homelessness is the top issue that polled voters want a local government to tackle. The Night Team's Devin Clark explores some of the new data and possible factors that may have led to the change.
Within just a few months, opinions have changed. In February, 19% of Fairfax poll respondents listed crime as the most serious problem facing our area. Now, only 8% feel that way.
The poll includes opinions from all age groups, ethnicities, socioeconomic statuses, and political affiliations. Today, we got a chance to speak to some folks in the Lakeside community.
I think we've got a very dynamic community. We've got research in this area, the bio research that we have in the area. We do have the military.
Crime, according to, our safety officers and what we get at our meetings, is that crime is not a really big issue in Lakeside.
Alicia Campbell is president of the Lakeside Neighborhood Association. The San Antonio Police Department's crime tracker map shows that so far this year, there have been fewer reports of violent crimes like aggravated assaults and homicides in and around her neighborhood compared to some others.
The concern is the panhandling.
Campbell is with the majority of polled voters across the county, now most concerned with issues surrounding homelessness and indigence, views possibly impacted by the coronavirus pandemic.
A lot of people are losing their jobs, they're losing their homes, they're losing their apartments, and I know because one of my daughters, one of them. So, I'm going to have to take her in.
The Fairfax poll didn't only focus on crime and homelessness. Participants weighed in on a wide range of issues, including the city and county's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have the full survey on KSAT.com. Devin Clark, KSAT 12 News.
And coming up, we're going to take a look at the results when it comes to the local COVID-19 response and the biggest concern for many here at home. And don't forget, tomorrow night, we're going to be holding a virtual town hall where we will discuss these results with the Fairfax team, San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg and Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolff. You can watch the first half right here on KSAT 12 during the news at 6 after the mayor and judge give their daily update. Then from 7 until 8, we'll be live streaming the discussion on KSAT.com.
Sky 12 bringing us new video from a crash on Canyon Lake this morning. Hours later, and the small plane that plunged into the water remains there. The two men who were inside were able to get out safely and make it to shore before they were taken to the hospital. Kayakers could be seen making their way over to the crash site. The Comal County Sheriff's Office says the plane was traveling from Midland to New Braunfels before it went down around 10 o'clock this morning. Both men are expected to be okay. DPS, the FAA, and Texas Parks and Wildlife are all investigating.
Sky 12 also over the fine silver curve today, where it wasn't an 18-wheeler but a pickup truck hauling watermelons that turned over. Many of the melons seemed to look all right after scattering around the roadway. Instead of smashing pumpkins, there were a few smashed up watermelons. Crews had to close that roadway until it was all cleared away. Still ahead, we bring in a San Antonio doctor and member of the COVID-19 health transition team. How will we truly know when it's safe to get back to normal? The coronavirus Q&A coming up.
And a car part now being used to help build ventilators. The local scientists behind the effort coming up.
And with new restrictions, churches will be allowed to operate. So how are some of San Antonio's places of worship responding? Next on the Nightbeat. It is actually our second Fairfax KSAT Rivard Report poll of the year that was released today. More than 650 registered voters participated. And earlier in the newscast, we talked about crime. But when it comes to overall response to COVID-19, the majority of the participants said they support how local leaders and government agencies have responded to the pandemic. 74% said they approve of San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg's response. 71% of people approved of Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolff's response. When it came to participants, the biggest concern, 59% said they were worried someone in their household would be infected. Food insecurity, another concern. And one of the hardest hit areas is the city's south side. Many food distributions have been taking place. Recently, the organization Lots of Love held a food giveaway at Pika Pika Plaza for 280 families. Lots of Love will hold another food distribution tomorrow on Friday at the Pika Pika Plaza from 1 till 3. And a reminder, the Boys and Girls Club of San Antonio is scheduled to hold a food distribution at their East Side Clubhouse tomorrow. That's right next to MLK Park. They've teamed up with the San Antonio Food Bank to get fresh produce and dry goods to those in need. You don't need to be a club member to get emergency food. Tomorrow's distribution will start at 3 in the afternoon and at 6 at night or until the food is gone.
Religious leaders are playing it safe when it comes to reopening churches, despite the governor allowing churches to operate with limits. The Archdiocese of San Antonio had planned to wait until mid-May to hold Mass or reevaluate the conditions. Meanwhile, pastors at large churches say they're not in a rush to hold large gatherings either. The Night Team's Patty Santos reports.
We want to be really careful to make sure that we're not the cause of a spike in cases again.
Some 2,000 years ago,
First Baptist Church of San Antonio Pastor Chris Johnson says everyone is longing to worship together at church again, but congregations need to be cautious.
What we're sensing and what First Baptist is sensing is that we need to wait, and we're going to wait and see what's best for us and what might be the safest for us.
The governor has already given the okay for churches to gather with restrictions in place that comply with social distancing practices and look out for the most vulnerable. City health experts say based on local data, they recommend that churches wait a bit longer to hold services.
While we were still sinners.
Although Pastor Johnson says based on how well his congregation is responding to online service streaming, TV worship, and the group meetings on Zoom, they're not in a rush.
Our numbers have been doubling. I mean, they've been astronomical. And so we're just, we're praising the Lord for that. We're grateful that we've been able to minister in that way.
Pastor Johnson says he's been in touch with about 40 different pastors from around the city, and while he can't speak on their behalf, he says it sounds like a lot of them are also choosing to play it safe. Pastor Johnson says his church will wait at least 2 weeks to track any possible spikes in cases as the state and cities reopen once again.
There's no one answer for all of us. I mean, we're going to try to collaborate, but different size churches and churches that are doing different things, you know, we're going to be on different timetables, and we're going to do the best to serve one another and serve this city with grace.
Patty Santos, KSAT 12 News.
Got some breaking news. I want to take you with Sky 12 right now. It is a crash on the near west side. Police responding to this vehicle accident near Zarzamora and West Commerce.
Yeah, no word on any injuries as of now, but as you can see there, a large emergency crew presence as they try to figure out what happened here. Traffic still looks like it's going on the street there, but again, the West Commerce and North Zarzamora will continue to follow the situation out there.
Meanwhile, as we take a look with live cam tonight, 83 degrees. It's still kind of warm out there for this time of year, Adam.
Yeah, it is. And actually 83 is our average afternoon high temperature that we normally hit about 4 or 5 p.m. So that gives you an idea of we are running a little above average, at least for now. And we did top out at 92 today. Del Rio actually broke a record hitting 102, so breaking the old record by 3 degrees. We had some heat out there today. A cold front's actually going to move through early tomorrow morning. With it, a slight chance of storms around here. Better chances off to the north and east of town. So let's talk about it. Over the past 6 hours, we had some storms across the border in Mexico. Contrary to last night, these did not make it across the border. They just they paralleled it and moved southward. But you see this yellow box. That's the severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 4 a.m. This is the prime area where we have the ingredients for severe thunderstorms. It's basically parts of Travis County, Blanco County, and northward through Dallas, Texarkana area, and stretching all the way up into Oklahoma and Missouri. And actually, this cold front has already been responsible for triggering thunderstorms that have had damaging hail, damaging winds, and even potential tornadoes. So it'd be nice to get some moisture around here, but I'll be honest with you, I'm glad we are not in this zone where they have the highest risk of severe weather. This red area and orange area, you're talking southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, that's where we have the greatest risk for severe thunderstorms through the night and in the pre-dawn hours tomorrow. For us, we'd be right on the tail end of all the activity. And like I said before, I mean, that's fine with me in this kind of a situation. I would love rain, but not necessarily in this manner. Now, parts of our area, coastal plain and just north of San Antonio on 35, are in that marginal risk for severe weather. It's a very slight risk of that. But let's go through time with our futurecast. I like this particular model as we go through the night. By 2 a.m., the storm's approaching Waco. 4 a.m. Waco to north of Houston. Then we get to about 6 a.m. Austin could get clipped, but most of it's going to be east of town, closer to Houston. And it may not even be severe at that point. Then we get to 8, 9 a.m. and we could get clipped in some of our areas. Also, it looks like the humidity is going to plummet behind this front. We're going to see a big drop off. Early in the morning at sunrise, still humid. Dew points in the 70s. Then that north wind kicks in. It's going to be a beautiful day tomorrow. We have that slight chance of storms early tomorrow morning in the pre-dawn hours, but then it's going to be beautiful. We had the haze in the sky today. You probably noticed that as we had the heat, the humidity, and also smoke from Central America. You can see that smoke that we had in place. Now, good thing is with this wind shift with our cold front, that smoke gets pushed out of here and it's gone. So tomorrow, all the way through Friday, just that nice, crisp baby blue color to our afternoon sky. It's going to look good. 66 in the morning, 30% chance of those storms around and before 7 a.m. 86 in the afternoon, a windy day. North wind at 20 to 25, gusting in excess of 30. And then look at this, with that drier air, we're looking at mornings in the 50s by Thursday and Friday with sunny, nice, comfortable afternoons in the 80s.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, a former Spur Now coach kind of making an admission that I haven't really heard so far this year.
Not any coach that we have heard of in the NBA, but right now he's operating under the assumption the NBA season is over for the Warriors. But what about the rest of the league? When we come back, more about this breaking story in the NBA and a birthday parade for Bryce Strong when we come back. Former Spurs, now Warriors head coach Steve Kerr says his team is operating as if the season is over. This comes after the NBA announced on Monday the team facilities can reopen 1 week from this Friday, believed to be the first step in restarting the season. Kerr made those comments in a Zoom meeting with the University of San Francisco after the NBA suspended play on March the 11th, and the Warriors having the worst record in the NBA at 15-50.
It feels like the end of the season for our team. It just does. And we don't know anything officially. There's still a chance the league could ask us to come back and play some games. But given what we went through this season with all the injuries and the tough record, it's been more of the case of, we're staying in touch with guys, but everybody is just sort of assuming that, this is kind of it. We're not going to be involved much anymore.
The Spurs were 4 games out of the playoff picture when the season was suspended, so they may have a little different attitude depending on where the NBA season resumes, if it does at all.
Pro football coverage, powered by Davis Law Firm.
One of the keys to the Cowboys' success in the 2020 NFL Draft was improving the Dallas team, more specifically the defensive backfield. After having Sooners wide receiver CeeDee Lamb fall into their laps with the first pick at number 17, the Cowboys used their second-round pick to start work on their defense, and they were able to snag Trayvon Diggs out of Alabama. First thing that stands out is his size at 6'2" and 207 pounds as a 2-year starter for the Crimson Tide.
Doesn't take long when you're watching the tape. Smooth, long, athletic, and we're putting such an emphasis on turnover ratio will be a big part of our daily focus as a football team. And this young man goes and gets the football. So the way we want to play, particularly in the back end, I think he also is an excellent fit.
Houston Texans star offensive lineman Laremy Tunsil says he has hopes he has started a trend. That's after he's able to negotiate his new 3-year, $66 million contract extension on his own without an agent. The deal announced before the draft guarantees a 25-year-old NFL veteran $50 million, making him the highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL. So what gave him the confidence to do the deal himself?
I feel like it was time to write my own destiny, if that makes sense, to put things in my own hands and to get it done. You just have to bet on yourself, and that's what I did, and I got the deal done. I'm extremely proud of myself and the team. I'm still speechless.
Now, Tunsil is hoping his actions help inspire other players to do their own deals and not have an agent. A birthday celebration, remember, for one Justin Rocket fighting cancer. Next. He has been battling cancer for over a year and now is in the process of recovering from his latest surgery. But the Johnson community, that included coaches, teachers, family, and friends, did not let Bryce Wisdom celebrate his birthday today alone. With more, here's our Jessica Hunt.
I was like, what is going on? Because I didn't know what was happening. I just saw the fire truck coming down. I saw a line of cars. Everybody was honking. So I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Bryce Wisdom's 17th birthday will be a celebration he will not soon forget. Hundreds of people, faculty and coaches, family and friends surprised Bryce by parading by the Wisdom family home to celebrate his big day.
It just puts everything to the side and just celebrate him, celebrate his day. We're not worried about appointments or calls or anything else. It was just all about him today.
It was very special. I appreciate all the love, everybody that came out to support me and all the birthday wishes and all the gifts.
It's not something that I've even imagined, but it's awesome and it's so needed for our family and it's what keeps us going and keeps us fighting. But today is a great day. It's a great day to be Bryce Strong.
The Judson Jr. had already inspired his community with his public battle with kidney cancer since March 2019. One he's faced with poise and a smile.
He doesn't know it, but he teaches me a lot. He's teaching me to get over it. He's teaching me to do a lot, and he's really growing me up. He's an angel for sure.
I tell my own players all the time, you're either breathing life into people or you're sucking it out of them. And, Bryce Wisdom, he breathes life into people. Every time I'm around him, I just feel better.
The icing on top of the cake was an early acceptance letter to UTSA.
That's real special. I didn't expect it to come this early. I thought it was going to come like closer to the end of my senior year, but to come like towards the end of my junior year, it's real special to me.
Reporting in Converse, Jessica Hunt, KSAT 12 Sports.
All right, thanks a lot, Jessica. You saw a lot of familiar faces there. You saw Jeff Traylor, the new head coach of UTSA, and in fact, of course, Bryce's older brother plays for UTSA as well. You saw Trey Flowers, who also is now playing in the pros for Seattle, a former Justice, and you saw Caden Stearns, who went to Steele but plays for the Longhorns, but he was in that parade as well. That says a lot about that community and their respect for Bryce.
The best sight was seeing Bryce sit in that big UTSA chair with a smile on his face.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Greg.
It's still ahead. One high school in Illinois making the glory of graduation happen for hundreds of seniors. They're planning to get students to walk across the stage while staying safe coming up.
And local scientists are working on building ventilators with a specific car part. The effort to save lives not only here at home, but possibly around the world.
Plus, what kind of safety measures should you look for if you do decide to go out to eat this weekend? We're going to take your questions to San Antonio Dr. Ruth Bergeron. Coronavirus Q&A is next. As states lift restrictions and begin to get back to business, calls continue for widespread testing. 2 months into the outbreak, testing is finally ramping up, but worries now have to do about the food supply.
President Donald Trump tonight designating meat processing plants as critical infrastructure. ABC's Romina Puga reports.
As the number of confirmed coronavirus cases here in the United States tops 1 million, public health experts say the key to reopening the country is testing. Governors pressing the Trump administration for federal help.
We want to get our country open, and the testing is not going to be a problem at all.
The lines for tests in New York City, the epicenter of the outbreak, stretching for blocks. And in an effort to reach one underserved African-American Philadelphia community, 200 cars of people packing a church parking lot, others coming on foot, there to get a nasal swab test. Dr. Ada Stanford explaining to her team why increased testing is vital to slowing the spread.
So we had a police officer positive, right? Protecting and serving, and now going out and he's positive.
And despite guidelines on masks, on Tuesday, Vice President Mike Pence making headlines for going maskless to meet with medical staff at the Mayo Clinic, despite the clinic saying they informed his staff it was a policy.
I don't have the coronavirus. I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to be here, to be able to speak to these researchers, these incredible healthcare personnel.
And the desperation for food felt by many Americans. In Chicago, Tanya Taylor is one of 800 people picking up boxes of food at Wrigley Field after losing her job at the concession stand there.
We used to think it wouldn't happen to us, but now we know we got this rude awakening.
And in Pico Rivera, California, where car lines stretch for miles. Now a threat on our food supply. At least 21 plants closed, more than 4,000 workers sick. Millions of pounds of meat will likely go to waste. Monday evening, the president signing an executive order under the Defense Production Act to keep plants open as critical infrastructure.
There's plenty of supply.
But a glimmer of hope. A promising vaccine candidate moving quickly into clinical trials at Oxford University.
6 monkeys given the vaccine did not contract COVID-19 when they were exposed to it, while monkeys who were not given the vaccine fell ill. Now over 6,000 volunteers are coming forward for human trials. In Los Angeles, Romina Puga, ABC News.
What we try to do every night with this coronavirus Q&A, where we take your questions to some of the experts. And we are pleased that most Tuesday nights, I think, 4 or 5 Tuesday nights in a row, we have had Dr. Ruth Bergeron with the Long School of Medicine at UT Health San Antonio. We are thrilled that she is back with us. Dr. Bergeron, you're also a member of the health transition team. So
I am.
I know that, the county and the city was hoping maybe some leeway would be coming from the governor's office when he put down his restrictions. Your reaction to what the governor had to say on Monday?
Yeah, so I'm happy that there's a plan for phased return to business, but I think that implementing it right now is too soon for San Antonio. And I say that based not just on the opinion of our health transition team. One of the metrics comes right out of Governor Abbott's recommendations. I mean, he recommended that Texas should have the capacity to test 30,000 people a day. And if you adjust for the population of Bexar County, we should be testing 3,000 people a day here to be safe to open, according to Governor Abbott. Well, in actuality, Steve, we're only testing 1,600 people a day. So we have a long way to go to get to the metric that Governor Abbott himself said we ought to reach. And there are other issues as well. We need to be able to contact trace. And fortunately, we do have the capacity within our healthcare system to take care of patients. We have the ventilators and the beds and so forth, but gosh, we don't really want to go there. And so this is too early for us.
Talk about the big difference that I noticed between what the governor laid out on Monday and what I saw in the city and the county's plan, were that there are definite metrics in the health transition plan for when we can move forward and when we need to pull back. Is that the biggest difference that you see as well?
Yes, but also the issue of masking. And we have very strong recommendation that's aligned with the CDC's recommendation that everybody actually over the age of 2 should have a mask on when they go out in public. And the governor's plan does not mandate this. There's a lot of discussion recommending masking, but there's no plan to enforce it. And it really opens the door for people to disregard that recommendation altogether, and that's a concern.
Yeah, but there are thresholds in the city and county plan that we can cross moving forward or that we need to pull back with.
Right. And, one of the first ones I didn't mention yet, of the 4 that relate to moving forward, I think perhaps one of the most important things is we're supposed to have had a 14-day sustained period of declining cases. That means for a 14-day period, every day there's fewer cases than the day before. And technically, we're at day 3 for that right now. There's a more liberal interpretation. If you just disregard one of the bumps we had recently, you can go back maybe a few more days than that. But we're certainly not at 14 days, and we'd like to be there. And then once we do get started, Steve, there are thresholds for retreating. And those would include things like if we start to see that the percentage of positive cases of the people that are getting tested, the percent that are COVID positive, if that starts rising, that's of great concern. And that would be one of the indicators that would cause us to move back. Of course, overwhelming the healthcare system, running out of PPE, that would be another reason to move backwards.
Great. All right, let's get to some of the viewer questions that we have tonight. The first one, how will we truly know when it's safe to go out without our masks and try slowly to get back to our lives again?
Right. Tough question. And that's why we have all these metrics, progress indicators, and warning indicators. Right now, it's not safe to go out without your mask on. We still have community transmission. And if we suddenly take off our masks and go outside and interact with each other, we're just going to be back to square one. So, if we can meet these thresholds that we talked about of the sustained decline in cases, the capacity for testing, the capacity for contact tracing, if all of those things are met, then it's going to be safer, and we can move into what we would call on our transition team a phase 2, where businesses are opening at reduced capacity, initially 25 to 30%. And then after a 2 to 4 week period, if everybody's doing well, if we aren't seeing warning indicators, and if people are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing in their business places with social distancing and cleaning environmental surfacing, if that's happening after 2 to 4 weeks, then we expand again to an intermediate level. And then 2 to 4 weeks later, again, if all goes well, we expand to close to full capacity.
Great. Next question. I tested positive for the coronavirus and am self-isolated. How do I know when it's safe to come out of isolation? Should I be retested?
Okay, so there are really good guidelines for that, and you can find them at cdc.gov. And the guidance would depend on whether you were symptomatic or asymptomatic. So let's imagine that you got tested for whatever reason, maybe because you were close contact with somebody at work, and you were found to be COVID positive, but you never had any symptoms. How long do you have to stay isolated? The answer is 10 days. However, If you got your COVID test because you had symptoms of COVID, then you need to go home and isolate. You've got to be home for a minimum of 7 days from the time you tested positive. Plus, you have to have had no fever for 72 hours. And your symptoms have to be getting better. They don't have to be all gone, but your symptoms have to be significantly improved. So different standards for coming back to work depending on whether you're symptomatic or asymptomatic with your COVID-19.
Great. Next question. Another person. I tested positive for the coronavirus. So far, my husband remains asymptomatic. Should he be tested before returning to work?
So he should certainly be quarantined for 14 days. If he wants to get back to work sooner than that, then he should be tested. But remember, if you're still shedding the virus, your husband is exposed to you every day, and so he could still become symptomatic. So the test for him would really only help if then you are separated and he's no longer exposed to you. But the bottom line is someone who is asymptomatic but is a close contact of someone with known COVID, that person should quarantine for 14 days, and that means quarantining away from the sick person before they go back to work.
All right, next question. With some restaurants set to reopen, is it actually safe to take my family out for dinner this weekend? I kind of think this is a judgment call because all restaurants are not created equal. So I'm going to change this one to what should I look for in a restaurant that I'm going out to? What sort of safety measures do you think people should be looking for when they walk in the door of a restaurant?
Well, we've already said that, our transition team has looked at these criteria, and San Antonio hasn't met those criteria yet. So we wouldn't say that it's safe. But what you should look for is how well is the restaurant adhering to the guidelines that exist, the safety guidelines. And one thing is there hand sanitizer around? When you walked in the door of that restaurant, first of all, was there a crowd of people? Was there an effort being made to keep people 6 feet apart from one another as they're entering the restaurant? Was there a place to wash your hands or sanitize your hands? When you sat down, how far away were you from the other people? Was your waiter or your host or your hostess wearing a mask? And were the menus disposable? That's one of the guidelines for restaurants, Steve, is that we should not be passing menus from person to person. And ideally, the guests should be remaining masked until it's time to eat. So until they're seated, certainly, all the guests should be masked. Those are some of the basic things you want to be looking for.
It's a whole new world we're moving into here. Okay, a question that I had is about some of the things they're seeing in Germany right now. They are very concerned about a second wave, about a return of some of the cases of COVID there. Are you following that? Is that also your concern about what we may see in the United States?
Absolutely. Germany has been very proactive about being evidence-based. They're listening to their scientists. And when they relaxed the restriction, they started to see new cases surge. Of course, that can happen here. And, we talked about how we flattened the curve and we've had just a few meandering peaks, or people talk about maybe we peaked last week. If we relax all our restrictions and we go back to the way we were before, we will have a big surge. And all of these so-called peaks that we've seen will be like little foothills. So we need to be really careful. And we need to know that we're moving into phase 2 for good reasons, and we need to make sure we understand what the guidelines are for staying safe in phase 2.
Absolutely. I want to give you the last word like I always do, Dr. Bergeron. What are you going to leave our viewers with tonight?
Okay, we can do this, San Antonio. We can do it, but it requires working together, it requires teamwork, and it requires caring about each other. And I would recommend that businesses by sector form groups, affiliation groups, and that they coach each other. If one particular enterprise within a sector is struggling, then the other businesses should come to the aid, help share the hand sanitizer, share the best practices, work together as a group, because it's not about individuals competing for business. This is about helping our whole economy get back on its feet so that we can be healthy in all ways, economically prosperous and physically healthy as well. We have to work together. We've got to be a team.
Dr. Ruth Bergeron, UT Health San Antonio, always appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
We'll be right back. In San Antonio and Austin, scientists using creativity to build low-cost ventilators that can be used around the world. The Night Team's Courtney Freeman explains how an unlikely car part could ultimately help save lives during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond.
About a month ago, local scientists saw the COVID-19 death toll skyrocket in Italy as hospitals there ran out of ventilators. So they came up with an idea for a low-cost version that could be mass-produced.
A usual ventilator costs $30,000 approximately, and these new low-cost ambu bag ventilators are costing under $1,000.
Ambu bag, short for artificial manual breathing unit, typically used in transport when a patient can't breathe and has to be intubated. Usually the bags are squeezed by hand to pump air into someone's lungs. But creative minds at UT Health San Antonio and UT Austin School of Engineering changed that.
Of all places, they found the answer in a 2016 Toyota Corolla windshield wiper motor. It can run for days continuously and it doesn't heat up.
Dr. Mark Feldman, who leads the UT Health San Antonio team, says engineers in Austin attached a wheel to the motor, allowing the device to squeeze the bag like a hand would.
We've tried to add back features of a real ventilator. We can change how often the bag is squeezed, how much you squeeze the bag to increase the tidal volume. We can add pressure to keep the lungs open.
Another plus, mobility.
When you transport a patient around the hospital, you can't take the ventilator with you. And it only weighs about 15 pounds. It's very small, so it could be used in transporting patients around a hospital.
Hoping to get FDA approval within a couple weeks, Dr. Feldman says the small ventilators have successfully been tested on large animals. And soon he hopes to safely test them on human patients who are about to be taken off of regular ventilators.
This low-cost approach will last long term. It'll end up in rural hospitals that don't have a big budget and can't afford ventilators. I think they'll end up in the third world where they also cannot afford $30,000 ventilators.
The research teams have connected with a Dallas company called Thermotech, which is now trying to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to mass produce the ventilators for use around the world. Courtney Friedman, KSAT 12 News.
With many wondering if graduation ceremonies will happen, a high school in Illinois has figured out a way to get students to walk across the stage. Hundreds of seniors at the school were notified of the new take on the tradition. Next week, students who opt in will get an appointment time to get a cap and gown portrait taken. They'll also be recorded walking across their high school stage as their name is called to an empty auditorium.
It's definitely going to be something to tell my kids, and my kids' kids is going to be great.
It's definitely different, and it is nothing we ever expected, but just knowing that our school is still honoring us like that means a lot to us.
Students and staff will be required to wear masks and stand 6 feet apart. The edited video will be streamed on the seniors' actual graduation day, showing the students as if they were there on graduation day. We'll be right back. Take a live look outside with live cam on this evening as we look outside at the quarry at 80 degrees. Very nice outside.
Yeah, the smokestack's red, white, and blue out there at.
Yeah, and one thing I've showed you a lot of over the past couple of weeks is satellite imagery depicting changes in pollution and significant drops in pollution. I have a different type of satellite imagery I want to start with here, and this is for some of our friends in far east Texas. We're talking Jasper, Texas. You look at this first glance, okay, it's an aerial map, right? But remember, this is a part of Texas that got hit by several tornadoes late last week, Wednesday, Thursday time frame. And notice this horizontal line right here. That is the track of an EF2 tornado as seen from space. The day after when the sky cleared, you can see the vegetation that it ripped up there. Max sustained winds up to about 130 miles per hour with that one last week. All right, so looking at the satellite and radar, or I should say giving you an idea of where that is. There you go, far east Texas, and there's the Louisiana border. All right, zooming out, we have some activity on the radar screen right now off to the north of us, especially moving into the Metroplex at this hour, approaching Memphis as well. This cold front, it's dropping southward, and it's the main triggering mechanism for this big, long squall line of severe weather. Damaging winds, damaging hail, even some radar-indicated tornadoes along parts of that line. The primary threat here is in the orange and red areas, East Texas, Dallas, and parts of southeastern Oklahoma. As for us, there's that little marginal risk of severe weather. We think it's pretty slim later tonight in the pre-dawn hours as we get into tomorrow morning. So here's our futurecast, and I like this particular model. We get into about 4 a.m., Waco to just north of Houston. We've got basically the tail end of that squall line. And then 6 a.m. could just be clipping Austin. Thereafter, 7, 8 a.m., we may get a few thunderstorms here and there. If we do, there's that very off chance around and a little before sunrise that we could have some severe weather. But odds are pretty slim with this one. And honestly, that's fine with me. I know we need some rain around here. That's just not the type of situation you want to get your rain from with what they have gone on in Oklahoma and parts of Northeast Texas. Right now we're at 80 degrees in San Antonio, Carrizo Springs 88, Uvalde 79. Tomorrow morning in the 60s, that cold front moves through and will make it to 86 for the high. The biggest change with this front is a drop in humidity. Low humidity tomorrow, gusty north wind, at times over 30 miles per hour. So windy, sunny, and lower humidity, and that drier air makes for some temperatures down in the 50s by Thursday and Friday mornings before the humidity returns this weekend.
Thank you, Adam.
We'll be right back. Some teachers have had to find new ways to reach their students as they learn from home. For weeks, 2 fourth grade teachers in Brooklyn, Wisconsin have been dressing up as different characters for virtual learning lessons. Kelly Massey and Matt Feek say dressing up as Vikings, Kermit, or Batman motivates their students and gives everyone a much needed laugh in a stressful time.
That Kermit outfit, that's awesome.
Look at that, that's great.
The
Very
pirate,
funny.
I love it.
Yeah, that does it for the Night Beat. Don't forget, Good Morning San Antonio starts at 4:30.
Good night.